The herald angels sing.
Nice.
The herald angels sing.
Nice. Love the story of Mariah's voice development, whether it's gospel or not, is always really interesting. The color of the belts that she has in this little bit here, it changes so dramatically with age. Right? It's lovely. It's not like epic or powerful. It does get there, right? And if she goes higher in range, absolutely. But listen to how like this sounds so beautiful. As you go up, it's going to kind of the high note's going to pop out of the line, out of the frizz, which sometimes you want. And actually, she just did that, but you don't always want that. There's a big difference between Chenica and Chenica, right? Like one fits into a phrase really nice, and it's even. The other one pops, and so she's done both in like back to back. Just different vowels. I love it. It takes a courageous person to use that much delay. Okay. What is delay? It's an alternative to reverberation. Reverb, the repetitions of reverb and the bouncing and the diffusing, that's all fairly, that's a lot more mathematically and in terms of physics, a lot more complex. What a delay is it's a simple repeat. It gives the effect of a reverb without pushing the singer into the back of the mix. And so the reason why I say it takes courage to do that is because this song, right? She hits it and then she leaves it, and then there's the delay right after, right? She messes that up, then that mistake is on repeat. That's awesome. It is amazing to me how much of pop gets informed by gospel. Now that I've been listening to more gospel, it's like, oh wow, that's everywhere. So for her to come at it with that is really interesting to me. This is another instance of like covering that I thought was really interesting. Right? Even just right here in between these two different phrases, right? You hear that pop of the note. Is a very, very neutral vowel. As far as a belt is concerned, that's very neutral. Go E-I-E-I-E-I, right? And so when you actually have a brighter sound, it's bigger up in the front of the throat. E-I-E-I-E-I-E. There's a coordination that's going on to blend the vowels, right? Your E becomes eh, maybe, your ah becomes aw, right? So these are little tricky things that actually take quite a lot of time to master.
Ah is a good sound, but it's white. It's not elegant. If you do now that sounds simple. Take probably 10 years to make a sound like that.
That does indeed take about 10 years. Like, it took me a long time. I want you to notice though that Mariah is in her 20s? Her early 20s when with the clip we're watching now. She's got that down pat. It's not easy. It sounds easy, it's not. I love it. So this is another thing that's really interesting to me about gospel. Gospel requires anything that's like opera or belting and gospel, like anything that's really physically demanding on the voice, your posture needs to be super active. You need to have really excellent posture so that the lungs don't get compressed. This is a plastic bag. This is me demonstrating that when you touch a plastic bag and it's wet, what's happening is you are recreating kind of what happens with the lungs. The lungs do not have structure of their own. They are entirely tied to the torso. So this is the metaphor of your lungs being plastic bags, put to a quite literal visual right here. Thanks AI, as this is not creepy in the slightest. This is a good example. The green there is the diaphragm. And so what happens is that diaphragm contracts, the rib cage expands, because nature abhors a vacuum, right? And so the lungs fit within that cavity, okay? All of this is to say that you have to have extremely active posture, because you need, as you go higher and as you sing these more epic phrases, you need less air, not less support. You need less air coming out of your face hole, because higher notes take less air. Let's take a look at this. Ready for this? Bam! In order to have a higher sound, you need smaller folds. You've seen a subwoofer, right? That boom, boom, boom. That's how much movement is necessary to create lower frequencies, because the waveforms for lower frequencies are literally large. So when you see that motion of a subwoofer, what you're seeing is the subwoofer pushing and pulling air to create a wave, and that is the size that is necessary to do that. Whereas if you look at a small little speaker, you can't really hear anything, or you can hear it, but you can't see the movement, right? So this works with the vocal folds like this, okay? I have large folds, right? I can just blow through these suckers all day, right? They're going to be fine. You're going to hear, actually, the white noise. Now that I've shortened this, the white noise is going to have a higher pitch. Right? There's your physics for today. Important to note is that when you thin your folds out, when you make them smaller, what's going to happen is that they're going to want to flip open if you put too much air behind them. Why? Because the body is smart. The body knows that a bad singer is going to hurt themselves. Hence the flip into falsetto, just as a safety precaution. So it takes a lot of control. And needless to say, Mariah's pretty good at what she does. This is idiomatic in opera and in gospel, where these challenges of singing this incredibly difficult repertoire are handled with expertise. Okay, hold on. Let's gush for a second. Literally right after we talk about like how hard it is to balance and do all that stuff, look at her. It's like, I was like, it's hard. It takes a lot of years, a lot of practice, a lot of training. And she's like, she could be just on a treadmill, like, or they're like walking through the park. She's just like, yeah, I'm Mariah Carey. I'm better than you. I think that's why people don't like Mariah, is because she forces them to like measure themselves and look inside themselves as to why they are not as good as Mariah Carey. This is preposterous. This is so ridiculous that it's so easy for her. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Okay. What a, it's like it's Christmas. Who needs a Christmas album when you have this in existence? This is Mariah and Whitney singing together, right? Whitney, beautiful voice as well. I want to point out here, there's this like vocal fry thing that's happening. It happens when the mucosal lining is not there, or someone's dehydrated. So the mucosal lining is exactly what it sounds like. It's mucus and it lines the folds. You don't have that, you get this. Right? Where they start just shuffling against each other and it's not even. You don't get an even seal. If you look really carefully here at this diagram, you'll see that there is just this little piece of vocal folds that are a little farther apart, right? Mucosal lining exists to seal that. If you are dehydrated or you've sung a lot or whatever, that mucosal lining goes away, and then you have this vocal fry that we're hearing from Mariah. There are a couple of factors that end up responsible for why our voices change when we're sick. Immediately, mucus becomes a consideration. Mucosal lining is what seals the vocal folds. So without that, you're going to get like a little bit of vocal fry. The inflammation changes the vocal tract, the shape of it, which changes the tone, right? Right? So that's the vocal tract right there, shape. If you're inflamed, all of a sudden this changes, right? The swelling of the vocal tract changes the shape, therefore it changes the tone. So you have the obstacle of dealing with mucus while also having to deal with an entirely different shape of the vocal tract. This is assuming that the vocal folds themselves are not swollen from coughing, etc. Now I just need to hear this one more time. All those who say that this performance is lip synced, go to hell. That right there, what we just heard, that vocal fry, she's not lip syncing. By the way, that's very difficult. Not just the notes in and of themselves. Obviously, yeah, that's really difficult. But adjusting on the fly to something as dramatic as not having a mucosal lining, that takes skill. Listen to this. There's a before and after. She's like, oh, that's happening. Let me fix it in the next phrase. Right? Takes a little bit of time, probably swallows a little bit. You hear how that rasp almost just disappeared, right? Just absolutely brilliant. I'm going to do that thing where people hate, where I actually break down like literally everything that happened here, because there's so much that happens, all right? So she hears the frying, she feels the frying, so she hands it off to Whitney, right? A little bit of a handoff here. Boom. Hands it off to Whitney, swallows. Swallows, adjusts. Aspirates. Who knows what miracles? So who is an aspirate? The H sound is an aspirate. What does an aspirate do? It flips the folds open so that you can adjust. And what I mean by adjust is folds just so gently come together. So this usually takes me a few times to get. This is the difference between what's called an aspirate abrupt versus an aspirate gradual. That's the best example so far. Takes me a little bit to get there. You can see it's just kind of even like that, right? It's even like that, and then the folds gently come together. Folds open, gently come together as I increase the pressure of the air. That is another thing that's difficult to do. So if I am trying to put my vocal folds together, this is why the aspirate gradual can work at all. This is the Bernoulli effect. Ready? If I put these two pieces of papers together like this, right? If I blow through them, you'd think that they would blow open, but that's not what happens. The Bernoulli effect. The Bernoulli effect is why it is possible to do an aspirate gradual. There is also an aspirate abrupt, which is ha, ha. I put in enough air pressure that the folds just come together. Do it abruptly, right? So what does this have to do with what we heard from Mariah? Well, a lot, actually. Who knows? By using an aspirate abrupt there, she knows that there's going to be vocal closure, even though there's not going to be mucosal lining, right? Because of what we talked about, the Bernoulli effect. That is not necessarily strictly an aspirate, the k sound, but it is there. There is an aspirate element to it, and so she's using that. Listen to how she hits the little consonant, right? She takes her time on that. 'Cause that's an aspirate gradual. Your mind blown yet? Because mine is so good. She does that to adjust. No, there's still a little bit of fry. You know, you can't escape the fact that there's no mucosal lining, but that's how she adjusts for it like that. Crazy. It's brilliant. Oh, that's BB King and Pavarotti and Justin Bieber. Whatever. I am not worthy. I am so glad that these videos existed. God damn. Has chills. Let me rephrase that. If you don't have chills, close this video right now. You're not worth it. This is incredible. Belts are it's a very precise. It's probably, I would think, one of the hardest things to do in all of singing. Though that's subjective, right? If you grow up around it, say for example, if you're on gospel, you might have more exposure to it and of it being done well. So you might have earlier access to it. But this is incredibly precise. A belt. Let's talk about a belt. What is that? And why is this so difficult? So belting is what happens when this part of the voice here, the larynx, the cartilage here that is called the cricocartilage, cricoid. So the idea, the theory behind it is that when it goes up and back, vocal folds get closer together. Okay, we have two different angles of the cricoid cartilage here. In this bit right here, well, right there, got it. This is the cricoid cartilage right down here. This is the view from the back. On the front, we have that right there. That's the cricoid cartilage. Now what happens is that this will tilt up. And if you notice here, y'all, new technology, these are the vocal folds right here. So if this goes this way, it means that the folds, which means that the folds are getting closer together. So that's what creates a belt. There's a different visualization that's a lot easier and involves less coordination. Show that one. So when you have thinner folds that you would ordinarily use for, just singing higher, right? You'd have kind of like, it's gentle. It's not a ridiculously loud sound. But now let's do it with the folds that are thickened from the cricoid cartilage going back. I'm not blowing more air. What's happening is that because they're fatter, more air pressure is being built up before they open. That's what gives belt that sound, that loud sound. If you tighten them too much or you use too much breath, this is what's going to happen. I always hate this because I wear a ring and I never take it off when I do this, but bam, ow. But that's what happens. Boom, punch. Your vocal folds punch together. That's why belting is sometimes dangerous. So going back to this, listen to how she just is like, she's like a sniper. Like, come on. Really? The person who made this compilation just is like, we're going to throw this in. It needs no introduction. It needs no explanation. It needs no context. Now, I agree, but I'm mad that it's the truth. Can't tell if that's a whistle. It almost sounds like a whistle. But even if it's like a quasi whistle, I think this just goes to, again, the precision that Mariah has, which is basically all this video has become, because it wasn't supposed to be how Mariah Carey was always amazing at gospel. It was supposed to be how she developed as a gospel singer, but here we are. So, a whistle note is what happens when the folds are adjusted in such a way to create that what you would get from the lips. Now, I can't do this with my hands very well. I'm not coordinated enough. You have to organize them in such a way that you'd create that little gap right there, just right there. And these are the folds at their absolute thinnest. They're almost in falsetto. So to do that, to go from sniper belting to be able to adjust for the lack of a mucosal lining to now doing this like elegant quasi whistle head voice thing. She puts vibrato on it. You want to know why that's insulting? You want to know why that's so damn hard? Okay, so remember we talked about the cricoid cartilage going and fattening the folds? The opposite happens when you use the thyroid cartilage tilt. Okay, so here we have right up there, this is the thyroid cartilage, right? Ignore the fact that I have a neck beard. I'm disappointing my mother every day that I do this. But this is the thyroid cartilage right here. It's that, like this, what we see there, and it is also what we see here. This is the back of the thyroid cartilage right here. So the vocal folds are attached to the thyroid cartilage. What happens is that the thyroid cartilage can tilt this way. That stretches out the folds. Why am I so sure that this is what is happening? It is because she has vibrato. You do not get vibrato without a cricoid cartilage tilt, or sorry, a thyroid cartilage tilt. The only other alternative is right, like, which is not vibrato. It's violent punching. Okay, so those are the vocal folds. Let's pretend that we have just a super little small opening where it's like there's the whistle note right there. It's just super tiny. You can barely even see it, but that's it. It shapes the right. We have this like small little hole thing here. It's like, but that's not enough. No, small little hole thing. Now we're going to stretch these out, and we're still going to maintain small little hole thing. Why can't I do this with index cards? I don't know. Why can she do it with her voice? It's not normal. So not only is she doing crazy things with her face hole like sound, look at this. She's getting Oprah to lip sync. She's getting Oprah. Oprah, the most powerful woman on earth, I think. She's one of the few women billionaires that exist. Oh my God. Like, I can buy anything. I am so rich. I could get any performer on this show. That's why I picked you. Damn, that's a statement. Really cool. All right, so we all know gospel has a lot of runs in it, right? Depending. The big challenges with doing runs is that it can very easily become mush. So in order to have a sound that is not mush, you need to have an attack somewhere in the different notes that you're doing during the run. Mush. What am I doing? A scale? I guess. It almost sounds like I'm sliding in between the notes. But what I have done here is, you see all those little spikes here? This will be one example. I'm going to ignore that I just gave up on the last bit of this, but this is without any attacks. Right? Get sloppy at the end there, just by any standards. But you can see there's like, it's mush, right? Like, what is going on? Whereas there's several different ways to create that initial attack on the note. I am going to do some shenanigans with my larynx to make that happen here. Right? You'll see just the waveform in and of itself is a lot different, right? There's a lot more spikes. That's from the different attacks. It's not what Mariah's doing. No. Because you got options when you want to do this. What she's doing is this. What she's doing is, you notice how like much more intense the spikes are in this in the beige right there, that waveform. What I did here was this. Right? Every downbeat, I put my face closer to the mic, and that is dramatically easier to see where the spikes are for the attacks on the note. So now we get back to the point of it, which is where she uses mic technique to shape a run. All right. I tell you, I got nothing. Will say there's never been an easier way than to make people who are cast as like mouse number 2 to get them hype. Look at the reaction to this. Right? But all of those people who are not even union yet because they're just looking for that work, they're jumping up and down. And maybe that was their direction. Maybe Mariah Carey conducted their souls. Either way, it works. Love this. This is actually a really good example of her pulling it back a little bit, right? Her almost going a little bit more speech level. And that transition is definitely less like speech level, more to an epic sound. Voice is such a temperamental instrument, right? The thing with Mariah is that Mariah has performed and continues to perform live a lot. Like a lot. You're going to get Mariah when she's at her best. You're going to get Mariah when she's at her worst. You're just going to get Mariah. When you perform live this much, you have to have supreme command and over your voice, but also to be able to adjust based on where you are. Listen to this is almost speech level. It's almost gentle. That strength, that power is quite dramatic, isn't it? Plot twist, Mariah Carey actually is a metal singer. Oh, God damn it. This is a good example of like, her voice is not in the best situation. It's not that she's not singing well. It's just she's having a day, right? Everybody has a day. Renee Fleming has a day. Pavarotti has a day. The voice is the most temperamental human instrument, or the most temperamental instrument in existence. So the adjustments there are real. We already talked about aspirates, but also what she's done there is she's retracted the false folds. Speech level singing, the false folds are usually quite neutral. You can actually experience this quite easily. If you have a cup of coffee or tea, or you can imagine a smell like that, just imagine breathing that in. And then by breathing it in, you're going to experience it. You're going to feel it. The folds are going to open. You're going to feel this open. That's the false fold retraction. So it is much, much easier to sing with retracted vocal folds. It is significantly easier. Sound is also dramatically different. Right? That's that richness that gets added to the retraction of the folds is what we're hearing here, that allows her to adjust for whatever problem she might be having that day. Boom. That's how she does it right there. The other thing too is that little squat that she's doing helps her posture. You can tell right here by her face, she knows what's happening. What that does is, so often at time, we have issues with our lower back or our back in general. That has a lot of consequences. This, friends, is the omohyoid muscle. It connects to the top of the larynx onto the hyoid bone, all the way down to the scapula. So your larynx gets pulled down if your back is tight. It actually gets pulled down dramatically. What I have here is a time-lapse video of me stretching my back. And you're going to see that just stretching the back and the hips out alone with this stretch gives me like almost 6 inches difference in my posture. Here's where we start. Here's where we end. Now here's example 2. Okay, so here we go with the second stretch of the day. Check that out. Now, time-lapse, we're stretching. See how much difference that is? That is massive. And the implications for that are everywhere. If your larynx is getting pulled down to that degree, you're going to have a hard time, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing. So what we see from Mariah here is she does a squat. She's going to do a squat right here. So that is particularly effective because she's also in heels, right? So by doing a squat where is tipped that way, her lower back curves, which means the tension in her back, which would create that kind of curve that tends to happen when you're wearing heels. By tucking your pelvis in for that squat, your back is stretched out a little bit. So those are the two things she's doing right there to adjust for whenever she has a hard time. She's incredible like that. You're never gonna open your mouth and have perfect sounds come out all the time. That's just not going to work. That's just never gonna happen. So it's important that when you have these difficulties that you can be like, okay, I'm gonna solve it doing this. It only ever takes her like 2 seconds to ever do that, which is incredible.